All right, ready? Oh, to all the viewers who we have already so far, welcome to this breakout session where we talk about the endless opportunity of the circular economy. And let me start with quick introductions. I'm Keiran Smith. I'm co-founder and CEO of Mr. Green Africa, based in Nairobi, Kenya. And just quickly before I introduce everyone else, what we do as a company is we're basically a circular plastics economy company that closes the loop fully, and we've approached it with the fair trade principle, where like smallholder farmers in banana, tea, and coffee industries get included into a more formal value chain. We did the same and applied the same principles and ideas in plastics, where our smallholder farmers are waste pickers, informal waste pickers who harvest every day. And it's a great pleasure to be here and hosting this panel today. With me, we have Tanya Clarke, who's the founder of two businesses in Malawi, Invegrow and Kawandama Hills. And we have as well Olawale Adebiyi, CEO of Wecyclers, based in Lagos, Nigeria. And we have David Auerbach, co-founder of Sanergy, based in Nairobi, Kenya. So hi, everyone.
Hi.
So let me just set the stage quickly, talking about a buzzword, circular economy. What does it really mean? And I'll try to very simplify the meaning. And I think so far our capitalistic systems and economies, they've always been on the basis of a very linear system where we extract resources, we produce a product, we consume a product, and that product ends up in waste landfills, or in the best case scenario, it's being incinerated, where the energy is being used, but the material is gone. So in a circular economy, the idea and the foundation is of Mother Nature. And it's really about trying to make the resource that we use, bringing it into a loop where someone else's waste can be another person's resource. And I think that's really the basis of circular economy on multiple streams and materials, textile, plastics, sanitation, forestry, etc. And here today we have some of those great innovators that have been in the game way before the circular economy term was known. And I'm really proud and happy to be with you guys here today. So let's go around the table and start with some introductions of these amazing companies that you run, and talk a little bit about what you do. So Tanya, for you first, please go ahead.
Okay, hi, hello everyone, welcome, thanks for listening to us. So I founded Kawandama Hills Plantation in 2009 in the north of Malawi, and we plant a tree called Corymbia citrodora for lemon eucalyptus essential oil, which we use in natural insect repellents. It also has an antiviral effect as well, so we've just launched a new brand of sanitizers, natural-based sanitizers, in response to the COVID issue. As a byproduct, we have timber, and so we make that into charcoal, and we actually lobbied the government for 2 years to get the first ever charcoal license issued in Malawi. This is a country where only 9% of people are connected to electricity, and the vast majority of people are using firewood and charcoal for their energy needs. So really, it's really kind of like a part of everybody's life here, but everybody was government was putting their head in the sand. And we really needed to raise the profile and say, no, listen, this is leading to deforestation. We need to talk about this. We planted over 5 million trees since 2009. We have a full distillation facility at the plantation, which is 6,500 hectares. And we conserve and protect over half of that, 3,500 hectares or so, is natural indigenous forests. So we don't disturb those forests, we protect them. Then in 2013, I started Invegrow Limited, which led the industrial hemp journey here in Malawi, cannabis basically. And whilst we got authorization to conduct trials in 2015, which we did, and we trialed 10 different cultivars. And now that has led on to the legislative reform to legalize cannabis in Malawi for industrial and medicinal use. Under 1% THC, but it's a start, and then we'll obviously progress into other things. So both my businesses are very involved with nature, with conservation, and also with the circular economy to an extent, maximizing the use of your core products, but also your byproducts. And I'm very committed to that vision, and we do a lot of awareness and education within Malawi. Thanks.
Thank you so much, and thanks again for being with us here today. Wale, over to you, Wecycler. Tell us more.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for having us, Keiran, and thank you for the Future Summit to hosting this conference. So basically, Wecyclers is a social enterprise that's for profit. That main aim is to help people capture value from their waste. It was founded in 2012 by my co-founder and sister, Adebiyi. And really, we started out in Lagos, really focusing on the challenge that we had, which was a big issue with waste. Waste was a major crisis. And globally, even in 2012, over 1 billion people access to dispose of waste properly. And we're talking about the circular economy today, and waste really is where it all begins. We all generate a large amount of waste, and we have to be able to find ways to recover that waste and put it back in something useful. And as we grow as a world and as a population, we're seeing that waste continues to grow, excessively high, and oceans are being polluted. And the goal for Wecyclers was to go into these low-income communities that really didn't have any means of disposing of their waste and helping them capture value from it. So we wanted to give them an opportunity to take the waste that they generate on a daily basis and actually create wealth from it. Wecyclers developed a social incentive program whereby people actually were able to sort their waste at the source. So we taught them how to sort. And in return for the sorted waste that we got, we were giving them incentives, which were just household items. And we, in return, took the material and sold it to companies that converted that back into a finished product. So most of the materials went into textiles, making new packaging for the food industry. And so what Wecyclers was able to do was to create a value chain from just material that was ending up in the gutters and oceans and really causing a major crisis, both in the health and in environment space. And so today Wecyclers has really grown since 2012 inception. We started out with bicycles, going house to house, collecting recyclables and really trying to grow our business. And today we have over 200 employees. We've actually collected almost 7,000 tons of waste time. And last year we collected almost 2,000 tons alone. So Wecyclers continues to drive this initiative of teaching people about the circular economy, teaching people about capturing value from the waste, because waste is a very valuable tool that we can actually use to leverage and monetize. And just to add, one of the other critical things that we struggle with, in Nigeria, in Africa, in many developing countries is poverty. And we are trying to tie that into that. So waste can actually help people come out of poverty. Wecyclers is able to create really sustainable income for people that really don't have any means of income by being able to go around, collect waste in return for cash. And that money provides, in a lot of cases, the money that is required to sustain families and provide food and housing and shelter. So Wecyclers is very proud of the work that it does, and we are very, very committed to really continuing to grow the importance of social values and also the circular economy.
Thanks, Wale. And I can't wait to spend some time in Nigeria with you and see what you guys do on the ground. David, please tell us a bit more about Sanergy and what you guys do in your in here with sanitation and the innovative business models you created.
Sure, thanks, Keiran. And so great to hear stories. Wale's sister started Wecyclers with Wale back when she was at MIT, which is also when Sanergy started at MIT too, back in 2011, 2012. And so we have had this great connection over the years, but we're seldom on the same panel. So it's really fun to see you today and hear. Yeah, so Sanergy, we started back in 2011, and similar themes to what you're hearing here. So much potential in waste, in creating value from waste. And where we started is actually from two different challenges. One is that are very similarly. One is the sanitary. In fast-growing cities in the developing world, we have so many. We don't have sewage infrastructure yet, and yet people need access to safe sanitation services. Here in Nairobi, where I live, we have about 2.5 million people living in informal settlements, which make up about 5% of the land mass and 65% of the population. So people are living close together. If sanitation waste is going into the rivers, into the waterways, into the soil where people are, it puts everybody at tremendous health risk. At the same time, there's another challenge, which is that in Nairobi, and this is typical of any developing city, 60% of the waste is organic waste. And so here in Nairobi, that's like about 2,000 tons a day we're getting that is effectively just being dumped into going to landfill. Is coordinate the collection. What we do is twofold. So one is that we're actually collecting the waste from around the city. We work with restaurants and hotels and agricultural pack houses like Twiga Foods, which I think was speaking earlier, and collect their waste. And then secondly, we have built a great organization called Fresh Life that is delivering safe sanitation services to residents of informal settlements. So we're serving about 120,000 people every day with eco-friendly toilets where the waste is being collected every day or every other day by our network of waste collectors who are all young people from these communities. We take all of that waste out of the community and all of the organic waste. We take it to a large processing plant that we built, and we're converting that into valuable end products. The first of those are called black soldier fly larvae. So this is insect-based animal feed. And so what this means is that we're rearing flies, and they eat organic matter, and they love it. They have voracious appetites, and will just they get big and fat. We harvest them, and then we pasteurize them and dry them, and the end product is 40% protein. This protein is, you can get this at your fancy gyms in Europe and places like that, but really, it's really good for chickens, and it's really good for fish. And so this is what we then do, is that we actually sell this on to feed millers who are producing, who are then putting this into their mixes and helping livestock farmers who are seeing increase in the weights of chickens and fish by about 30%. At the same time, this is substituting from fish, which is what half of all of the waste, all animal-based feeds are made up of. The second thing we produce is organic fertilizer, which we just derive from composting the leftover residue. This is really, really valuable for helping restore the quality of soil. And in doing so, and this is really important in arid climates as well as economies where they've been really dependent on synthetic fertilizers, which have depleted nutrients. And so we're selling that, and we're seeing lots of vegetables get about 30% bigger. And then the last thing we do is that we convert this into biomass briquettes too. And so this is just a clean fuel that basically enables us to power boilers and other such industry. There's, in Kenya, we faced a charcoal ban or a timber ban about 3 years ago. It tripled the price of charcoal. So this is a much more sustainable biomass. So I'm going to stop there and jump in, but that's how we're thinking about it. There's lots of value from waste.
Thanks, David. And also, again, one more time, welcome. So let's go a little bit into sort of the discussion phase of this panel session here. And there's couple of things that we will talk, and I think that will be tremendously valuable for our audience that is listening in. So the first element I wanted to talk really about the journey, because every one of you has been in this game for a long time, creating value out of something that was perceived as not valuable. And I think especially since the circular economy topic is really, really fast growing and accelerating, and many ecosystems evolving, especially also with the effect of COVID, I think has created a lot of momentum. So I really want you all to tell a little bit more about your personal stories, because there might be one or two entrepreneurs in the audience who want to go into this space and want to sort of listen in and really capture some valuable individual insights. And then I think we should also spend some time on challenges that we have been facing, that we will still be facing going forward, as we really want to have a systematic change. And the final thing, I think, really what we want to offer here for anyone who's watching is that there is going to be key takeaways, call to actions on how they can engage with this topic and really unlock the potential. So, Tanya, over to you. Tell us about your journey and how it was before everyone was screaming and talking about circular economy. We can't hear you. You're on mute.
You might be on mute.
So a little bit about me. Even though I'm originally from the UK, I'm also half Latina, so I have a nice mixed blood. I came to Malawi just after finishing University of Edinburgh, and I didn't really know what to do with my life at the time. I studied history and Spanish, which I loved. But then, I kind of just thought, well, I want to do something to help, but I didn't really know what that was. So I came to Africa, to Malawi, for 2 weeks to help with my cousin's project. And I traveled to schools and orphanages and stuff, and I just completely fell in love with the place. The north of Malawi is particularly lush. It's just beautiful, like amazing. The people are, really, really awesome. I decided basically to build a school. So I went back to London and I set up my project, and I built and I raised the funding. It was tough. I was 24, so I was young, and I had to kind of really talk my way through, convincing people to give me money to build a school. But I worked hard, and I came back to Malawi and built the school over the course of a year and a half. Lived out there in the village and really interacted with the community. The school now has 730 kids, and it's a government school. I handed it over to the government to ensure sustainability, and then we help it with resources and a few key personnel. So then the businesses came along after that. I decided I wanted to stay. The natural insect repellent business is a family business, and so we needed to have a source of raw material. And so we set up the plantation to do that. And that's kind of that was in 2009. And that's brought so many different opportunities, forestry, tree planting, as I say, the sanitizers, the timber, wood, and all the challenges around energy that we face in the country. And so that was, I was 26 when I started that business, and that really kicked me around a lot, slapped me around a lot, taught me a lot of hard lessons about, my culture and also myself, what are my values, arrogance, humility, everything. And it's like, I'm just so grateful to this continent for having really taught me an enormous amount about myself and how I could actually bring some kind of like lasting positive change. As I said, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And by doing Kawandama and the essential oils, which I love oils, I love botanical oils, it led on to then my passion for cannabis and for hemp. I really feel that cannabis is a game changer. There's a lot of like dollar signs always flashing around cannabis, but it's not really only about that. Like there's the industrial applications of the plant are incredible, and they've actually been, established for decades and decades in the Northern Hemisphere. But sadly, because of maybe aid and because of the number of, sort of money issue, like aid money and maybe those restrictions, countries like Malawi have been very worried about getting into it for a long, long time. And it took a lot to like break down those barriers and explain that actually, 40 countries around the world is growing this plant for industrial purposes. So why shouldn't we be doing it? At the farm here, we have built a 50 square meter hemp house, which is awesome. And that was from the kind of the herd from the stalk of the plant. We've also expelled oil from the seed. We've made ropes and stuff with local communities. We've made paper, like artisan paper, so that, for tourists. So it's been a really amazing journey. And all I would say is that to all of you entrepreneurs out there is that it's not easy to do anything in life, and just like stick at it and stay strong. And like if you really believe in something, be prepared to just button down the hatches and just like go for it. And don't let anybody tell you that you can't do anything, because everybody told me that I couldn't do what I'm doing, and we're doing it. And I was thrown out of government offices, or rather asked to leave. And but like you just got to keep on going, use charm, keep a smile on your face, and go for it. Nothing is impossible. So that's my advice to you entrepreneurs out there considering some interesting innovative ideas. Everything is possible. The circular economy concept shows it. We weren't talking about this issue formally, even 5 years ago. Even even these bloody awful blue thin plastic bags, which are like, bane of my existence. They're now government's actually talking about banning those. I mean, it's remarkable. It's remarkable. Yeah. So, yeah, that's my.
Okay. So, I mean, keyword here, I think it's not easy. You have a lot of barriers that you will face in the journey. I mean, Wale, tell us a bit about your journey and the resistance that you have gotten with, coming up with an idea very early on as a pioneer on trying to create incentives and rewards for people and making them out of waste and so on. So tell us, how did you convince people that this is a true opportunity?
Yeah, so how much time do we have? I don't know if we have enough time, but I would say that, Tanya, like Tanya just said, it's obviously a difficult journey. Wecyclers, pretty much the idea of Wecyclers, David pointed out earlier, started out in a class at MIT. My sister was, pretty much just talking about, issues in developing countries and primarily in Africa. I think she got frustrated with the idea that people that were talking about, the problems didn't look like her. She was like, what am I doing to solve this problem? So she decided to come back to Lagos, our home, and really try to fix this problem. She didn't really have an idea about waste in particular, but, Billikis and myself were always talking about something in recycling. And, when she came back home, that kind of just was the opportunity. And this 2012, that was really, like you said, the buzzword circular economy. I mean, nobody was talking about the circular economy in 2012. So it was a very, very novel concept. So you can just imagine, they were going to these communities, this really difficult environment in Lagos, which has about 20 million people, and saying, hey, we want to recycle. And they don't like, what, recycle? Like, what does that mean? So it was extremely difficult, for them to really get people to buy into the concept, of just how to get people to recycle and recover their waste and buy into the circular economy. And they had some difficult times in convincing not just the individuals but the government, or trying to get. Literally, they were going door to door, handing out toothpaste, handing out soap, and just trying to get people to buy in. And it was very discouraging at first, but luckily, people just surprised them and started following through with the requests of bringing materials to the hubs. And then it just kind of became, a big effect, and things started picking up. But in terms of difficult challenges, I can say that, every day is always a challenge in this space, in social entrepreneurship, in trying to create change. You're going to have a lot of difficulties. And in our space, and I'm sure Keiran, you can relate to this matter. One of the things that we have to do in terms of having a sustainable business is to make sure that the business is successful. And it's not just about creating opportunities by getting grants or trying to give people handouts, but it's really about trying to make sure that you're able to create a sustainable business. And I think that's the most difficult concept that we have to prove, is that how can you create something from nothing? But we've been able to do a lot of that in terms of getting people to buy in and showing them that this model actually works, and scaling, being able to grow the business to a point whereby people can actually have real impact and real change in their lives. So to just summarize it, I think the journey has been very difficult. Wecyclers has started out with just one bicycle. We used to ride this bicycle from house to house. We then evolved to get tricycles. Now we actually have full-size, garbage compactors. We have large trucks. We have, crane trucks. We have so many different, equipments, and thanks to all the support that we've gotten on the way with our different partners, but the journey is incredibly difficult, but you can never be discouraged. And, before we started this session, we're talking about survival. I think it's really about survival in this space. You have to be able to survive. You have to be able to continue to drive and create value wherever you are. And you have to ensure that you don't get discouraged, because you will find so many things that will discourage you on a daily basis. But it's really important to continue to stay positive and really celebrate the victories and keep remaining positive for the future. So I think that's kind of our story in a short phase as we go forward.
Yeah, I'm sure we don't have enough time to share the whole entire story, but at least we have some glimpse. Thank you for that. David, how was it for you and your co-founders to come to Kenya and start this crazy idea?
Yeah, it was, well, it didn't feel that crazy, even if it is. Like, one important thing about, the circular economy is that, or all of us here, is like, we see such potential in it, that it's going to work, and at some point. But it is a long, hard journey. And Ani and Lindsay and myself, co-founders, started it while we were, as Wale was saying, we also started in a class at MIT where they were challenging us to come up with solutions to poverty challenges that affect the lives of over 1 billion people. They wanted you to think big, and sanitation is that, and so is agriculture, of course, too, and what we convert the waste into. What we did, just for the entrepreneurs is that we started small. We started with a pilot, and once and we had 1 or 2 toilets up and running, and we were able to show that people would use those toilets, and that people would come, and we could come and pay to use those toilets, and that we could collect the waste, and that we could convert it into something. And that's all we showed initially. And in fact, the Siegel Family Foundation was our first funder on this. They gave us $10,000 back in 2011 to go explore that further. And so we've always been super, super, super appreciative of that. Once we had that, then we set a new set of questions for ourselves to prove, and as we did that, that's what gave confidence to the bigger funders and investors as we grew, right? It wasn't, anyone can talk about the vision, right? And we have to talk about the vision to inspire. But then from an operations perspective, being able to show the progress that you're making and why that progress that you are making is scalable, and is answering questions that will help you get a lot bigger too. And so that's been the path that we've taken, and it's involved a lot of iteration too. As I spoke at the beginning, like, we didn't do organic waste in the beginning. We only did sanitation waste. But then we realized, as this gets big, we're going to need a lot more waste. Like, when we talk to cities, the thing they worry about more is their solid and organic waste than about the sanitation problem serving their low-income populations. Like, we wish that they cared more about the serving low-income populations with safe sanitation, but that's not the reality of the world. And so being able to be a better client to the government and to your future customers is something that we've been able to iterate upon successfully. And just a quick word on co-founders. It's really valuable. It's a lonely journey for those who do it on their own. Tanya's nodding. And just having that support on the way is really, really valuable. People you can talk to, people you trust, who are going to be in it with you through thick and thin. And when we don't have the answers, what we're also we're really keen on talking to others about for mentorship and help. Wale is right. Like, you can't always just raise grants, right? If you want to really realize, really want this to be huge and successful. But you can always reach out to people for advice. And as you sort of segment out the challenges that we all face, even if the circular economy is novel, you can still segment out your challenges, right? You can still talk to farming experts or plastics experts. You know, you can still talk to HR experts. You can still talk to financing experts, and that's, you know, and one of the really nice things about being in the social enterprise community is that those resources are available, and I can't stress enough the importance of you as an entrepreneur not having to do things on your own. You know, you just have to be able to have the humility and the willingness to talk to others and listen to and learn from there.
Yeah, I know. I remember, you know, it's an entrepreneurial syndrome. If you have a great idea, you shy away to share this idea with the world initially. And I think that's one of the worst mistakes you could do. You have to share as much as you can, because the moment people know and are aware what you want to do and intend to do, they will all of a sudden connect you with the people who might have a solution to your problem. And sharing, collaborating is really something that is super important in this journey. Yeah. So thanks for these insights. So let's move to challenges, and maybe to the audience. There will be great opportunity also to start going into some sort of question and answer. So please start sending some of your questions in to us, and we will be able to address them here in this panel. But just going a little bit on the challenges and some of the things that we're facing now going forward with, you know, this very fast-growing ecosystem. What if you had to pick one challenge? I know there are many, but if you had to pick one challenge that you want to share and highlight and maybe send out there to some of the viewers that needs to be solved and addressed, and that you would appreciate some inputs in, please share. Anyone can go first. So.
Well, I'll just say one little story as well, because you know, one of the issues we were having with the substrate in our like horticulture, what was like, you know, substrate, you know, like, and normally you use like cocoa peat, super expensive imported stuff. And so we've actually met with an organization here in Malawi that's making organic compost from market waste, but like tons and tons and tons of this stuff. I'd never heard of them before. And they potentially could solve our whole problem, you know, and I'm meeting with them next week. And I think that kind of, sometimes like that lack of, you know, even David and Olawale, like, you know, just never even knew you guys existed and were doing what you're doing. And I think that kind of connection, you know, there's a lot that we could all be kind of taking and working with each other on. And summits like this and events like this will obviously help. I think there needs to be more of that, because you know, there are some major issues that, you know, we could all resolve by collaborating a bit more, like my waste issue, my organic compost issue. Yeah.
David, you know, Malawi's next, huh?
Yeah, we have lots of
roadmap.
lots of food, lots of.
Yeah, it doesn't run out as long as there's people. So yeah.
Wale, challenges.
Yeah.
What's your take?
I think there's a plethora of challenges, you know, in any type of entrepreneurship, you know, venture, social impact space. I think my biggest challenge that we see, you know, in our space is a funding gap. And, you know, I think we in this space understand what needs to happen to really grow, you know, and close the loop, you know, for a circular economy. And I'll just give you some numbers, you know, from Nigeria. You know, we're putting in about 100,000 tons, over 100,000 tons of PET bottles into the system every year, just PET. But we're only able to collect about 10% of that. So that you can imagine into the gutters, into rivers, and, you know, Nigeria is currently the 8th largest polluter of the ocean globally, you know, and landmass wise is kind of a small country, you know, so it's kind of an amazing statistic to see that, you know, where we are. And we understand that to solve this problem, we have to grow the capacity of, you know, recycling of PET bottles. You know, if we keep putting this volume into the system, there has to be a way to get it back out, you know, to invest in collection, invest in conversion, to ensure that we are able to actually create something out of these volumes. You know, so I think one of the biggest in our space, you know, because we understand that in order for us to be able to create this change, not only will we actually help solve a major critical environmental problem, but the fact that we are able to recover even over 50% to 60% of those volumes will create so many jobs in terms of incentives for people, because that's a very significant revenue for a lot of people. But just imagine all the factories that are going to be created from recycling these volumes, and actually the jobs that are going to be created and the actual addition to the economy. So we see that actually uplifting a lot of people out of poverty. So it's a big challenge for us, because a lot of funders are going to be like, well, this is a very difficult economy to invest in, or are we sure we're going to get our money back? So you see that people are kind of hesitant to invest in this space. And a lot of social entrepreneurs don't really want handouts. They just want to have support, whether it's from a corporate or from an investor. So I think, a big challenge a lot of social entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs in general have in this space, in this I guess region is funding.
Yeah.
We need to do more in that.
Yeah, I like that keyword, funding and investors, and segue into that. David, I mean, how has it been for you on the funding journey? And Tanya, please also feel free to chip in, and Wale as well. Like, how has it been in these couple of years back, especially before circular economy was not such a big topic? How was funding? How was it? I mean, how easy? How hard? How many setbacks? How many successes? Share some insights here, and I'm sure it's very, very.
I think the
valuable
entrepreneurs. I mean, there's definitely more rejection acceptances for sure. But good entrepreneurs learn from that and move on. They don't take it personally, for sure.
Yeah.
I think I think look, like we've always been fortunate in being able to raise capital well. Like we started at a time when like the Gates Foundation in particular was taking an interest in what was called the reinvented toilet, or what is called, and that was really catalytic in providing lots of credibility and support for us. And this is what I think is so important about this, sort of how the circular economy has taken off as an idea. Is that here is that there's a real cachet, like a real brand value now to this idea, as opposed to like waste, trash, like all of these concepts that don't sound particularly profitable or that people want to think about either. And so now that and so as that's taking shape, like we're just seeing so much more enthusiasm and excitement for for our work as we start to then expand into lots of other countries too. And I do encourage like entrepreneurs to like don't be afraid to latch on to to an idea that even if your idea has predated that for a long time, or just the way things have always been done, here, I mean, across, in all the countries that we work, like, people have been reusing things forever, right? And that's sort of how things work, and now is actually being able to attach it to a sector that is really growing from the investment perspective. So.
Investment. If we had to weigh in pros and cons of there's grant money. There's a lot of grant money flowing around for this topic now, and then there's also more commercial capital coming in. How do you weigh in those things? How do you find the balance?
We always, we operate with a discipline of as if we didn't have grants, but we also recognize that we're working in like a very we're not working in like seamless markets, right? We're working in places with lots of friction. Keiran, and Wale, like the work that you guys are doing with like the informal waste pickers, that's like a very that's not the smoothest of systems, right? And this is something, and yet as both of you brought up, like it's really creating good jobs. And for me, like, grants can play a really important, valuable role there as you're trying to basically create smoother systems that, we already have that already exists often in the developed world, right? And so, and so for me, that's like really what these grants are doing. They're helping buy you some time to be able to make your model a lot smoother. And so, and so I don't think we should be adverse to it. And I also think it's like, I don't think it's the right argument. Often you hear people are just dependent on grants. And I'm not sure that's, I think that needs to be evaluated on a case-by-case basis, and how these companies are actually being run. So.
Yeah, I agree with him. Absolutely, David. I think the points he brought up are very strong. I think grants definitely have a place in this space. And like you said, there's a lot of friction. That's a good way to put it. One of the things that, Wecyclers has done a lot of, in the past, if you're you don't really have huge CapEx budget to buy equipment, to expand your operations. So what we've really focused on, at least from grant raising, is really help drive our CapEx, things that you don't want to go out and really raise any debt for, because you might not be able to sustain that debt. And, you don't want to give up all your equity trying to invest in collections or doing things that are going to create a lot of challenges for you. So grants definitely help with that. You can actually use the grants to invest in assets that are going to help grow the business. But then as a business, you focus on continuing making profits and make sustainable, being able to pay your bills with what you generate from the business. So I think that's very, very important lesson to learn as a social entrepreneur, because, we never take the approach of trying to run our operations with grant money. You want to make sure that your grant money really focuses on just helping you drive and grow the business, but then focus on making sure that the business by itself is sustainable in what it does, whether it's waste collection or, in agriculture. That business needs to be able to survive without any grant money. But in terms of growth, you can use that to actually help expand your impact.
Yeah. Tanya, how has it been for you? Were you at situations where you had to balance and choose?
Yeah, so we were lucky that we had an understanding group of private investors, but they were also very cautious about Malawi and Africa, and they sort of dribbled funds in. A lot of the time it was about getting a successful proof of concept first. So doing things on a smaller scale, growing the plants, growing the trees, planting, seeing what yields you're getting, in my case anyway. And then actually, so it's like doing some distillations, doing a little bit of processing to actually prove the model. It was the same with the school that I built. I managed to raise only a small portion of the money in the first phase. And then once I'd shown that we actually knew what we were doing, it was easier to raise the next round of funding. So I think that's where kind of grants can be really, really useful. I think you have to kind of see what grants come your way and what you're eligible for. But you obviously will always need to have an element of your own funding, and to keep your powder dry, try and hang on there as long as you can, and be really cautious with expenditure. In my case, we've had to be really cautious with expenditure because it's taken so long to achieve what we wanted to achieve. So it's really important to regularly analyze and really be honest with yourself about what you can and cannot afford. It's always lovely to dream of that vision, and you will get there, I'm sure, but you still have to achieve a few steps before that, and you have to make sure that you survive. So yeah, you need to really make sure you understand your business and can analyze it in a really honest way as you go along.
Yeah, and I can second that. And also, especially now when circular economy is this buzzword, there's much more grant funding, donor funding around, but if you build your business on that, and there's a new buzzword out there, those funds might shift, and then what are you going to do with your business? So really important to keep that and find that balance in the way of really leveraging the pioneer work that you want to do with it, you guys are doing, and bringing that in context and really making sure that it is on the basis and the foundation of the sustainability element, right? Because then you don't have to worry about these grant funds going away, and you can really focus and continue with the commercial capital that you already have or that you're talking to. So I think super important topic. So we have I think roughly 10 minutes left. So let's talk about call to actions. Very clear call to actions. How can an investor, a corporate, an entrepreneur, an existing entrepreneur who's already running a business, or an entrepreneur wants to become and start a new business, how can they engage with the whole circular economy as a whole and as a sector? But how could they also get in touch and touch base with you guys? What are you guys are looking for, and what kind of call to action do you have for the audience out there?
Okay.
Yeah, Tanya,
so I think on the general side, like these new buzzwords are important, and the social media attention they get, because this is the new way that we're all communicating with each other, and well, not new, it's been there for a long time. So this also will go on to the big corporates and the big universities and the big, and those are the guys that have money, and we need to keep the pressure as consumers up to say, we want change, we want trees, we want forests, we want this in the future. And that's going to be determined also by our consumption habits. So we need to make sure that we are, holding, companies and corporates to account and encouraging them, not just fighting with them, but encouraging them to try and look at things in a new way. For example, looking at BMW and all these car companies to try and use, like, say, hemp biocomposites in their car dashboards and stuff. It's more biodegradable. That also comes with big risks for them. So my call to action would be to try and encourage more research and development into, the circular economy production line, because ultimately we need to turn this waste, these products, into something that's valuable for consumption. So that's where science and technology comes in. We have to encourage them to provide the market, to provide the sales and marketing pitch for people to start buying these new products made from waste. For example, I have a fantastic bean bag made from textiles in Cape Town, from communities in Cape Town, Ashanti. I don't know if anyone knows of that, but they're fantastic. They're beautiful, they're colorful, but they're all made from old clothes. And bean bags are really expensive, generally. So it's about adding value and trying to create products that people want. And so that R&D and science and technology component, I think, is important.
Thank you. Yeah, really aligned. Wale,
Yeah,
call to action from your side.
Yeah, I'm going to kind of sound like a broken record, but I want to say it's all back to investment once again. And just to be more specific, I think that we need to understand that a return on an investment doesn't have to always be a method. I think that the metrics that we use to evaluate success in an investment have to also be evaluated and looked at. What is an investor looking for? If it's a social return or an impact on people's lives, there's a lot of other things that need to be evaluated, when making these decisions, and particularly in markets whereby we have a huge percentage of people that live below the poverty line. When you're looking to invest in an area like that, you can't just look at strictly how much more return am I going to get on the cash. Obviously, it's a very important factor, but we also have to be looking at what else are we looking at as a metric of success. And we have to focus on getting more investments in spaces whereby I consider the social space. Solving poverty doesn't have to be a social impact challenge alone. I mean, it could be a lot of money being made in terms of investing in spaces where we create jobs and create opportunities for people to come out of poverty. So I feel like my call to action is to investors to really look at the benchmark they use to set for successful investments. There are a lot of different initiatives thereby that can be very successful, but you have to look at it from a different lens. So we have to really push investors and other industries to reevaluate that lens and ensure that we're looking at not just the financial return, but also what's the social return to them.
Mm-hmm. Fully agreed. David?
No, I agree with all both what Wale and Tanya were saying. I think that you can very much act as a conscious consumer too, for those watching from afar. So for example, there's a great company called Who Gives a Crap that gives their profits away for buying eco-friendly toilet paper, and they give their profits away to 50% of their profits to water and sanitation companies. And those are the types of things that really attract, make a difference when those models start to work, and far bigger companies than them start to follow that too. I think even, and then also like sort of at a more systemic level, like this does matter at the retail level. And Tanya was touching on this. So when we talk about things like organic fertilizers, or I think the same is true in the plastic sector and perhaps in the hemp sector too. If the retailers who sell tea were in Sainsbury's or supermarkets, were very comfortable with waste-derived end products, and that would influence the entire supply chain on this, right? Farmers would be more comfortable that they can sell on their products, and it goes along the value chain there. And I think that's so what needs to happen is there does, as Tanya's saying, R&D to continue to prove this out, as well as also people in the public voting with their feet, talking about the importance of sustainably sourced products, and things like that. And so I think that's something that we all can be doing, and this fits really well within the elegant framing of the circular economy. So.
Absolutely.
And what about you, Keiran? What do you think? I feel like you've been holding back too much.
No, I mean, I don't want to be a repetitive host here. So I think I really agree with all of you in what you're saying. And I think call to action, maybe what we have not mentioned on is sort of maybe the corporate element, right? I think what corporates really can do is ingrain in their strategies these circular economy principles. And we see some really great companies out there, big FMCGs, who really getting on that train and trying to drive that. And I think one of the key things that I have seen is what needs to be aligned in sort of the vision of where we want to go to where we are today. We as a company, we face, for example, challenges when talking to procurement teams in these big corporates. And then you have a mismatch between a very price-focused driven strategy where they have their KPIs are not reflecting circular economy goals necessarily, right? And so really making sure that if there's one thing that a corporate can do is having sort of an impact-driven procurement system. And impact-driven can be from an environmental point of view, but it also can be from a social point of view. And any entrepreneur out there, any investor out there, any corporate out there, I think this is a really key element for systemic change and driving towards the circular economy. So I think that's a call to action that we can do as a consumer, as David has outlined, but also as investors, that really goes towards that and drives towards that. So I think that's really the only thing I could add to this. Otherwise, I think we've captured it quite well in terms of what are easy ways to engage. I think one pressing question before we close and conclude was, should we be discouraged by COVID-19 that has happened, or do we feel that it's actually an accelerator for businesses like ours that are in this space in circular economy? What quick answer? What is your take?
I think the fact that we're all here and in this space, we're already like flexible and fluid, and I think that COVID has been obviously pretty catastrophic, but it's actually allowed also, at least in my case, us to be quite creative with the way that we approach the business. We've actually created more opportunities than before, and also we found that people were willing to be less bureaucratic because of the emergency. And I realized how bureaucratic actually things really are globally, and it's the way people control things, it's the way people can manage things. Like even we experienced that with our natural insect repellent, which is natural, but I think I think we found it actually to be a source of more opportunity, but it's forced us also to be more flexible, taught us to be more flexible.
Yeah. David?
Yeah, sanitation is extremely closely tied to hand washing, which is, still the best way that you can help prevent, or one of the best ways you can prevent COVID-19. And so at this point, hand washing with soap for 20 seconds, is at this point, so it's helped attract a lot of attention to us, which has been good. and particularly seeing, oh wow, this organization is really coordinated to be able to reach, reach people at the residential level in their time of need. And I think that's, and that's really, so COVID-19 has, I wouldn't call it helpful, but we've been able to but we've really been able to show what we're good at and prove to various stakeholders just how effective we are.
Well, last word.
Yep. Yeah, I think I'm going to just kind of echo what my co-speakers have said. The testament for us is that in spite of this COVID-19 catastrophe globally, Wecyclers is poised to have its record year. Revenues, tonnage, pretty much in every category. And it's kind of ironic. It's not. I definitely don't want to wish this type of pandemic ever again. But what we've seen, as everybody has really pointed out, is that it's made things and made the work that we do actually much more prominent. And people now actually realize the importance of waste management. People realize the importance around this circular economy even more so, because we were pretty much forced to reevaluate. I think that it's a shift, and people are saying that this is very important. Hopefully, we come out of this, a stronger, I would say, people. So that's what we hope for.
Okay, thank you. Well, I mean, time flies so fast. We're already at the end of our session. Trying to summarize a little bit of what we heard. I think long journeys behind us, in front of us, a lot of work. Any challenges that we face, share them, talk about them, engage with others, collaborate, and this mental element of running a business. It's never easy. So find co-founders if you're about to start. Get good people into your organizations if you're in it. That makes the problem solving feel a bit more lighter and easy. And then don't back down from COVID. We're in a great space, accelerating space. Find your balance between investors commercially or donor money, and I think reach out to those great organizations, Wecyclers, Invegrow, Sanergy. And it was a pleasure to have you guys here. Thanks so much for the chat, and speak soon. I hope we can see you all in person soon, and not only virtually.
Great.
Thanks. Thank you for
Great
having
job,
me.
man. Great job, Keiran. You did a fantastic job.
Man. Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys. Be in touch with you guys.
Cheers. Yeah. Bye.